All right, here we go. We're ready for Monday. Today is Monday, April the 6th, and what we need to do is finish chapter 8, and that'll be the whole first half, give or take. What we would have taken a first exam, or second exam would have been now. But instead, we're going to have a Kahoot on Wednesday. So study what we're doing, because that Kahoot will be in place of the midterm exam, which you were supposed to take, I think it was a week ago, or maybe a week and a day ago. Here we go. Let's review. Piaget, you need to know substages 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So you need to be able to say reflex schemas. That's their reflexes. And then comes primary circular reaction, which is coordination of those reflexes. And then comes secondary circular reactions, and that's where you get a rattle, and they shake a rattle. And then it comes coordination of secondary, this is number 4, coordination of secondary circular reactions. And that is where to achieve a goal, like to crawl across the floor to get that toy, or they're going to want to do something. They're goal oriented. Substage 5, tertiary circular reactions. They call them little scientists, little experimentation, trial and error. They do things over and over out of curiosity to figure things out. And then the last one is substage 6. And substage 6 is symbolic representation. That's where I drew a picture of the cat. Or we talked about symbolic play, where they can use anything and pretend that is a pot or a pan, even though they don't have one, or they pretend like this is food, and they just play symbolically. So those are substages 1 through 6 for Piaget, all under sensory motor. You've got to know all 6 of those. Okay, how young? That Dartmouth research study, what was the youngest age of kids that would go into those stores and buy cigarettes and alcohol and stuff for their parties? How old are children when they speak their first word? Dog, cat, book. How old are they? Just one word. Nouns, verbs, which come first? Which do babies learn first? Lass and lad, make sure you know the difference. Most of you got that right on the questions, so I think you understand that. The difference between primary and secondary emotions. What's it take? Why would one be considered primary and another one be considered secondary? Erickson's first stage, you all got that right. It was trust versus mistrust. Some of you didn't have a very good example of it, but you obviously didn't listen to the explanation of it. Okay, so now we go on to new information. These are the last 11 slides on chapter 8. So here we go. Mirror neurons. That's the one with the monkey research. It was really interesting. What they did is they were studying a monkey, and he had a skull cap on, where they looked to see what areas of his brain were lighting up, and they were researching something totally different. But a grad student walked in. So a grad student walks in over there, and the grad student's licking an ice cream cone. And this monkey, the area of its brain that had this sensation that like it was licking this ice cream cone is what was lighting up. And the researchers were like, oh my gosh, this is so strange. This monkey thinks he's eating an ice cream cone. And so they call them mirror neurons, kind of like imitation, like you're watching it and you're thinking it's actually happening to you, that kind of thing. So 1-year-olds, they love it if you imitate them. But then I asked specifically what could be a negative example of mirror neurons. And without a doubt, your sensation should go to, a house where everybody screams and yells, because that poor little child would think that they're screaming and yelling at them all the time because of these mirror neurons. So it was kind of scary research when they realized how this could affect children. Okay, altruistic behavior, very self-explanatory. Just read that. Just read the slide for the good of everyone. That's what altruism is. Read the slide. Little kids are very altruistic. Okay, attachment theory. This is hard to explain, but attachment theory is the crux of almost all child development. It is huge, and it's kind of weird. It's kind of out there because it's a theory, right? So we don't know that it's fact because it's theory. But what they did is they came up with the thought that children learn a loving relationship from birth onward, which it kind of makes sense if you think about it. So like a child would learn how to love by being loved by its mommy and its daddy. So they understand that relationship, which would then lead to childhood where they could have friendships, Wonderful. Which could lead to high school where they can date, which could lead to young adulthood where they would meet people that they get very intimate with and maybe they want to marry them someday, or they meet another person and would rather marry them, and so you get to this marriage part, and then you learn this relationship that goes supposedly your whole life, that it all started because of that loving, intimate relationship you had as an infant. So again, as I said, it is theory, but it develops around 8 months. Everything happens at 8 months. Children crawl at 8 months. I'm going to put all these three things together now. Children crawl at 8 months. Children start to learn object permanence at 8 months, that even if you hide that thing, it still exists. That's what's object permanence. And now this attachment theory starts kicking in at 8 months. And so what is suggested is there's mommy over there. So up until 8 months, mommy can come and go, and the child, there's no object permanence, so it doesn't mean anything. But once they understand object permanence and they know how to crawl, they're like, oh my gosh, my mommy just went out that front door. Where'd she go? And they might scream and cry because now they understand that mommy still exists, even though I can't see her. And so that's a big part of attachment theory, that they want to have their mommies there with them. So, and it goes right along, they know how to crawl, so they know that, I know how to crawl, I can move from here to there. Oh, look, mommy just went from here to there. So if mom goes to another room, they can follow her and know she's still there. But once she leaves that house or leaves where they are, they can get, it can be very scary to that child. So that's a big part of what's called attachment theory. And there's a video that you have to watch. It's called Mary Ainsworth. Oops, I'm ahead of myself. First, we're going to watch Harry Harlow, and then we'll watch Ainsworth. Okay, sorry about that. So anyway, Harry Harlow, I'm looking at your slide right now. Harry Harlow is a guy who was kind of up against Freud, because Freud said, okay, sure, loving relationship. Well, it's all based on food. Remember Freud, everything was nature. It's not nurture, it's nature with Freud. And he said, it's all based on food. Since mommy provides the food, and you got to have food to live, that's what Freud said. Well, then Harry Harlow came along, and he was a guy, this is in the 1950s. It's a really old video. And when you watch it, you're going to realize, okay, there was no PETA, there was no SPCA, there wasn't anything for, quote, protecting animals. So you're going to watch it and think, oh my gosh, this is awful what they did. They had little monkeys, and they pretty much ruined little monkeys' lives by keeping them from their mothers, for example, or giving them a wire mother or a little cuddly soft mother. And it is kind of interesting research. And again, just be aware, they did it in the 50s and 60s, and so they were kind of allowed to back then. So as you watch the videos of Harry Harlow, it's all in black and white, and it's the real thing. It's the real video. You want to watch, and what he does is he, in his own way, proves Freud wrong and says, no, it's not food. It's actually something cuddly to snuggle and love, like a mommy kind of thing. All right, so we got that. Then it goes on to secure base. Secure base is basically mommy or daddy, something that child feels real comfortable around, and if they're scared, they can always run back to their secure base. Okay, so that makes sense. Then it goes on to Mary Ainsworth in the strange situation, and if you watch it as a actual PowerPoint, it spins around like it's really strange, because it is. But she does this like in the 1970s. She did her research, and it's in every textbook to this day. But what she did is she put children into this lab situation where they'd come in and they'd play, and then a stranger would come in, and then the stranger would leave, and then mommy would leave. And the key to all of this was watching what happened to the child when mommy left, and the child usually cries, like, mommy's gone, I'm by myself. And then they want to watch and see what happens when mommy returns. And when mommy returns, if the child calms down, then they say this is a secure attachment. This child is in a loving relationship, and their mommy or their daddy or the caregiver, whoever the person is that cares for this baby, has proven to be the loving relationship for them. So you do need to know the different types of attachment categories, and I'm going to read them to you right now, and this is the only way you're going to get them. So write these down. Secure attachment, you have them on the next slide. Secure attachment, 65% of children are considered in secure attachment. They calm down when mommy comes back. Avoidant attachment, 23% are considered avoidant. What that means is when mommy comes back, they're just kind of indifferent. They could take her or leave her. It's not a big deal to them that mommy returned. Resistant, 10%, they actually push mommy away when mommy returns. And the last one is disorganized, and that's 5%. These children don't know how to respond. They're just, they kind of push away, they kind of cry, they kind of snuggle. They don't know. They're just very disorganized in their pattern of dealing with what just happened to them with mommy leaving and then coming back. So there's a video, and you watch it, and you will see what they consider to be secure attachment. And the other things, 60, 70, 80, 90, if you add those numbers up, there's a margin of error. They don't add up to exactly 100%. But you do have to know those categories. Okay? So watch that video of Mary Ainsworth doing her little research. Causes for attachment, read that, easy enough. Okay, baby, emotions, and social life. This is really big. This is called primary intersubjectivity. And what this is the give and take between mommy and baby, and it's usually facial features, like looking at the baby, going, look at mommy, and baby's looking at mommy. And if mommy looks over there, baby looks to see where mommy's looking, things like that. Well, what they do is they manipulate this give and take, and it's a really bizarre video. You got to watch this one. It's called the Still Face Experiment. I have that posted for you. But just watch it. It goes right along with that cell phone idea, that when people are looking at their cell phone and they get this, some weird, that's what their face looks like. You were looking at people on purpose to see what their face looks like when they're watching a video or just doing text and going through Facebook. And it's just so sad. Because little children, that's what they see anymore. They just see this person with this blank look. So definitely look at that video and just realize that we want to make sure that we don't have that look around our babies, that we're like, yay, happy, the world's a wonderful place, this is so cool, that kind of thing. Social referencing, you need to know that term. What that means is the baby looks to mommy or daddy. Is this an okay situation? Am I okay here? The example I give really did happen to me, and I call it the bats at the zoo. And I took my little son to the zoo, and we walked into this one room that was really dark, and I had no idea that there were bats in there. And so we go in, and I'm like, bats. And so I kind of backed away, and the kid just turned and ran out of this room, and I'm like, no, bats, it's okay, I just wasn't expecting bats. Kid wouldn't even go in the room. He was like, never again. And I'm a horrible parent. I think I scared the kid for the rest of his life. He's scared of bats. But that would be social referencing. They look to you. They look to the caregiver. Is this an okay situation? A dog on the street. What do we do here? Do you teach your child, oh no, it's a doggy. Let's ask the owner if we can pet the doggy. How do you treat the situations? Whatever. They look to the parent for social referencing. Okay, secondary intersubjectivity, that's objects. That's like, oh, look at the mail truck out there. That's secondary because something else is involved. Okay, then it goes on to Erik Erikson. That's pretty simple. Autonomy versus shame and guilt, self-governance, confidence, that's what autonomy is. And then the last one, self-recognition. This is the last slide in chapter 8. This is huge. 2-year-olds, what it means is they now can live up to adult standards. Like if there's something that's not quite right, they'll go, uh-oh. They'll look at the little pony that's missing an eye. They'll go, oh, uh-oh. And you go, oh, yes, look, it's missing an eye. Or, they know that this isn't right. The other thing that little 2-year-olds do is they create their own little plans of what they're going to do. And they don't want to be thwarted. They do not want anyone stopping their plan. And so you just have to realize that that's a little 2-year-old. That's what they do. And a lot of times they'll scream. If they want to go over there and you're not going to let them, they just start screaming. And we call it the terrible twos. But you need to take that out of your vocabulary because that's not what it is. It's a little independent 2-year-old because they now know that they are their own little person and they can make their own little decisions. And so it's really a really fun age is what it should be. So don't ever say terrible twos again. If you ever hear that, say, oh no, they're an amazing little independent child. Your sister's going to look at you like, yeah, right. They're the terrible twos. Okay, so that's it for today. That's the end of chapter 8. There are no questions today that go with any of this. But you watch the videos because on Wednesday there was a Kahoot and you have to study. So study all your stuff from chapter 1 all the way to chapter 8. Okay?